You look amazing.
Thank you.
You look absolutely positively fucking radiant. And I just want to say thank you for being on another episode of The Full Set.
Thank you for having me.
This is episode number 29 of The Full Set, and I am your amazing, bodacious host, the Didi Delgado. And I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Luana Morales. Luana, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ew, why you say good like you was like good? Like we pulled are you calling them oracle cards? What are they? I don't know.
I forgot the name of the deck,
Okay.
but here we have our sacred card that we pulled before getting started today.
And so I just want to introduce you because I feel like you pulling that card is the affirmation. We already knew what it was. The ancestors set up this conversation, but you pulling that card is more of an affirmation for me. I don't even know. I was like, still up until this point, I was like, will we be able to pull off this conversation and the important work that's about to happen in this conversation? And the ancestors like, here go your ashe, here go your ashe. So
All
if
day.
it's all if it's all right with you, I want to introduce you, and then I'm going to invite you to do something for me, for you, for us, all the viewers watching, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Luana Morales is a birth and bereavement doula, a death midwife, a circle keeper, a spiritual coach, efficient, efficient, I don't know,
Officiant.
efficient, efficient, Reiki master teacher and herbal apprentice devoted to reclaiming our birth, death, and Afro-Indigenous healing practices. She creates containers that support reflection, experimentation, healing, learning, collaboration, and joy for our individual and collective liberation, be it through individual sessions, group facilitation, workshops, or retreats. Luana, my love, welcome to the full set.
Thank you. Excited to
I
be here and forever nervous whenever I do these things.
No, we fam, we fam, we fam.
Mhm.
I would like to maybe mitigate some of that energy because I was thinking how this week has been hard for a lot of people. It's only Tuesday. And if people didn't know that that's what day it is, you're welcome. So it's only Tuesday and it's been a terrible week. And we are trying to find the joy in things. And the more news comes out, the more loss we experience. And not just loss of people, but just loss of things that we have been attached to and learning how to grieve that. I think about how this has been a terrible month, how it's a terrible 2 months, how the 2020 that I thought was about to be on and popping has popped just in a different way. And I just want to know if it's okay. I think that I can lean on you for this assistance. If you could lead us through a grounding exercise. I did one with Lawrence, and surprisingly, I got over my like inhibitions about having my first conversation with him. So like if you and I could do this and that way we could set the tone for people who are joining us or people who will listen later, that would be really helpful for me. And I hope y'all agree with that. If y'all agree, give a clap. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right.
All right, so I'm going to invite you to soften your gaze or close your eyes or take a sip.
Both.
Yeah, and just anchoring wherever you've chosen to sit, making contact with the earth. So whatever part, so if it's your feet, feel the cross and cross them, and just feel yourself making contact with the earth and being perfectly held and breathing into that connection. Anything that feels overwhelming, that feels like a burden on your heart, I want you to breathe it into the earth. One of our great mothers who has the capacity to hold all of it. Any tension, any flutters of fear. Breathe it out and give it up as a sacred offering.
Mm.
So in this sacred time that we're going to be here tonight, creating the container to hold whatever may come up in questions and in stories, to hold our curiosity and to hold our pain. And know, and may you experience proof that we're in this together, not just in the suffering, but also in the imagining a different way. Where joy exists, where genius exists, where infinite possibilities exist in the middle of everything that feels hard and that we feel powerless over. So together, calling in the strength and the power of the ancestors that survived so we can be here in this moment, feeling their love, and calling in the support of the benevolent ones that walk with us, whatever your tradition is. And if you don't subscribe to a particular tradition, we know that the earth nourishes us and feeds us. And may we be in reciprocity. So in our walks, with our meals, let us say thank you. To the waters, let us say thank you. And from this grounded and connected space, let us begin.
Whew. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to just dig right into the work. I want to ask you, what made you want to become a birth and bereavement doula? And what is the difference? Because in my mind, I'm like, Luana's a birth and death doula. Number one, what is a doula, right? I don't know. I like wanted one during my pregnancy. I was like, I have to have one. If white women can have one, I can get one too. And it was just a mess. But what is a doula? How is it different from a midwife? And like, why did you choose to focus on not just birth, but bereavement and death?
So a doula, it's like the Greek word for you say like woman who helps, right?
Mm.
And there's nothing like seeing a child born, you know, um, like the impact of that experience that makes you just, well, if for some of us, you're like, oh, I wanna be close to that. I want to, I want to be part of this in some way. The first birth that I attended, I was a teenager. It was my homegirl's mom who was like staying with us because they had moved
Mhm.
away, and and the system over there sucked for them, so they came back to give birth. They stayed with us, and so that was like my first. I was 16 and I was translating for her at the hospital,
Oh, wow.
and we skipped school. I skipped school that day.
You were like,
Yeah, and I got to see this miracle. Fast forward, having my own children, and I just fell in love with
mm,
with the power of pregnancy, of like what that means to populate the earth with a person who is going to make ripples that someone is going to fall in love with, that is going to just transform you. why I became a doula was because just like the pain of seeing so many Black and brown women and birthing people dying, and so much infant mortality.
Right.
And I mean, we know what happens in the medical system with us, right? So I wanted to contribute something. I wanted to be of service in that way. So as a birth and bereavement doula, the bereavement part is specifically connected to pregnancy loss
Okay.
and to like stillborn, you know. So it's, because that's the other thing. I feel like my role in my work has been to meet people at crossroads and to meet people in places
Mm,
of darkness.
right.
I'm comfortable there. So, so many people have lost pregnancies and, have had to talk themselves out of the pain that it still causes them years later.
Right.
So whether it's like someone just found out they were pregnant and they might lose their pregnancy a week later or 6 weeks later. If you feel grief, it's valid and it's true, and you deserve to take as much time as you need to feel it and for that life to be acknowledged, if that was important to you. Um, so either through, supporting kind of like one-on-one through healing work or through ritualizing and honoring, if that's what the person wants and needs for their own healing process. So that's my work as a birth and bereavement doula.
Thank you. And when you say, I think of like how I know you. You're a Reiki master teacher and an herbal apprentice, and you're the officiant and all of these things. But I know something about you that you don't like the bios, you don't like calling yourself an herbalist or a homeopath or anything of the, because you're like the, yes, I want people to know, but like, why don't you like calling yourself a healer when your words and your presence is so healing?
There are certain titles that community gives you because you earn it. So,
Oops.
so, so,
Okay.
so I don't, and again, this isn't shade. This isn't like if you,
No, tell the T. You don't have to stand under the tree. Go ahead, baby.
well, no, 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 no. I mean, but this is my belief, like everybody's path is their path. What I just feel like is that the way that I think healing work and all of these things have been commodified, have been, can sometimes be exploitative. A lot of harm is caused. So I feel like I am of service to community, and it's like a very sacred relationship. Um, and sometimes like all of the titles just kind of, and the need to prove or perform,
Mm,
I think sometimes gets in the way of the work. Um, and I think for me also, because I'm shy and I'm introverted, I don't like to talk that much. Like I do not, people would be like, so what's like your elevator speech? Like,
you're
no,
like, what? I'm uncomfortable.
no, 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 we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. However, if you're like, if you want to have the hard conversations, I'm here for it,
Right.
you know? Um, yeah, so I think that's why like I personally have like a discomfort. I mean, I know that a lot of this is like, this is the language that we use. This is, so if you want to communicate what it is that you do and for people to understand and how they can engage with you and all of these things. But personally, like it's something that I try to, unless I'm like trying to describe it right, because there's something that feels like sometimes all this talking gets in the way of the work.
Mm. That's a quotable. Someone just tuned in. I think she's so excited because she said she was so excited. Noika said yes, she believes that they believe that doulas save lives and mend hearts. And Nikita said, thank you. I'm going to be following you. She's a new rebirth doula, a rooted birth and lactation advocate, and
Mm,
began with her own journey birthing as a Black woman. And so I just think about like what that means to be in community surrounding like a smaller community of joy and trauma and its own haphazardness. And I guess y'all doulas have this doula language because y'all get so hyphy when y'all be around each other. Like, yes, sis. Like, I mean, so it,
who else gets excited about that though?
I don't.
Well, exactly. I feel like it's like the same thing with like my birth work community. And also wanted to say that my bereavement work also lifts up and supports folks who have elected to terminate a pregnancy. So I wanted to like no judgment, full love and full support for all of those. So I just
And
wanted
yours, are you saying that? And I'm just asking as someone who has had an abortion, are you saying that as like the grief is still valid, right? A lot of times healthcare professionals don't really care about you after the surgical procedure or the procedure to terminate a pregnancy. And so are you saying to me right now that those feelings are valid and they matter, no matter how long ago it was, or
yes.
what have you? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really like you.
Absolutely.
I really like you.
I've held space for someone um who had an abortion, you know, and like maybe like 20 years later, as they were kind of transitioning um,
Mhm.
around, you know, their ability to have children, and they wanted, and we had a ceremony, and we honored, you know, that life because that's what she needed in order to kind of to heal and to move to the next chapter of her life. But yes, birth workers, yes, because we could talk about all sorts of things. And like the same thing with like other folks who do death work. You know, there's like certain things that you could joke about, or, you know, there's like a certain dark humor, I think, when you're like dealing with these two extremes and all of the possibilities in that work.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's good to have your people so you can say crazy shit.
Yes, they love it on you today. Catherine Parsons asked a question. I
Mhm.
want to ask you because I don't want to forget, but I want to segue into this. Catherine said she is curious if you could share how you refill your cup because your role is to give and take care of others. So, how do you make sure you do that and still maintain your own safety, especially with your mental health? Because self care as such is thrown around, and I'm curious how you feel about it. It's such a
Yeah.
thrown around word. And I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you something similar along those lines, but as a death midwife and as a bereavement doula, and as someone who has a project that you're working on where you're honoring, like I told you all the time, I'm like, I will talk to you about everything else. When we talk about death, you're weird. And there needs to be a weirdo because who else is going to deal with it, you know? But you have taught me so much about loss and how death is connected, whether it's in the physical or metaphysical sense. So can you just speak to like why is death such a dark subject would be my question.
I think it's a
Um,
dark subject.
why is it perceived as a dark subject and why does it make people uncomfortable? And also dealing with so much, there's birth trauma, there's happiness, the stuff that people don't tell you about having a baby, and then there's all sorts of stuff. But then when you speak about death, because it's so compacted and tucked away into our bodies into our society, is something we don't speak about and we're supposed to get over quickly. How do you replenish yourself when you're so busy healing but not healing other people? I'm going by your words, not mine.
Mm. Um, yeah, thank you for that question. Uh, boundaries.
You got boundaries? That's a whole nother conversation.
Um, you know, there's energetic boundaries that you know that it's important that I set.
Okay.
Um, and yes, filling the cup for me looks like sitting at my altar and the deep commitment that I have to my practice. Um, I think that what what gives me the nourishment and the vitality to do this work and not get burned out. I mean, like the thing that burns me out the most is just like right now is like Zoom calls, but the work itself, I think anybody who is of service, the moment that you think that you are, and I think this is why I make that distinction around like I don't like calling myself a healer. My role in all of, or my job in all of my roles is to create the conditions for, to support the conditions for healing to happen. To be able to create the safe environment,
Okay.
whether it's birth, that person is going to birth with or without me there. That body knows exactly what to do. That baby knows exactly what to do. They are doing like their sacred dance with each other, right? The contractions are bringing the baby down. And, you know, like the baby releases a hormone to let the mother's body know that they're coming. So things get started. I mean,
Oh, wow.
obviously, um, you know, birth is super medicalized
Right.
and there's like so many factors, but let's say kind of acknowledging that, um, but this, our bodies know what to do with, you know, with healing. Let's see, I'm doing some like energy work with someone, um, or kind of, you know, what I've named like spiritual coaching. There is like my role is to see maybe what the person isn't seeing,
Mm.
is to help create the conditions for folks to silence the chatter enough to hear their own wisdom.
To hear their own wisdom.
This ain't about me being like supernatural and being like, bam, this is like the secret recipe. It's about listening to you closely enough to hear your answer in your own words and reflect that back to you. That's it.
You're a little witchy. I just want to let you know in case you weren't aware. Just saying.
I'm a good listener. That's what I
No,
am.
that's the magic. That's the magic. Sometimes I feel like a lot of healers listen to put their credentials back on the table. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, and I feel like if I could just share my personal experience with you. Thank you. I wanted to ask your permission. I don't want to just tell all our business. Um, there was when I was with child, the one that's upstairs sleeping finally. When I was a child, um, I was very nervous. Like I had never been able to sustain a pregnancy, and I had been trying. I was married before, and I was trying very hard to have children, and none were sticking. And with Egypt, I didn't tell anybody for a long time because there was shame around that, and I was no longer married. And also, I was afraid to lose my baby, you know? And so when Egypt was here, that was traumatizing. And I remember speaking with you, and you were like, querida, like you always do. You're just always very loving. And I think if I could describe your love, you have used the word container so often. Your love is the ability to hold other people who cannot hold themselves. And it doesn't mean that the person is unstable. It just means that sometimes the load is too heavy.
Sometimes we need a scaffold.
I needed support during my pregnancy and even after my pregnancy. And you called me and you said, querida, we have a ceremony every month or so, but this one is special, and I want to invite you. And I was like, I'm not going to your bullshit, Luana. Like, I'm not doing it. Uh, but something told me, and we already know what the something is now, but back in 2017, I think no, it was the end of 2016. It was December 2016. Egypt wasn't even a month old yet. And I wasn't really like involved in my spirituality. I knew that I knew stuff, but I didn't know where it was coming from. I thought it was just more of a prophet than anything else. And something told me, you need to go to this. And so begrudgingly, I went. And you had a full moon circle. So I'm going to ask you to explain what that is because you are a circle keeper. You are a container keeper. And I think that people need to know what that is to expand their ideology of what healers do. That's my community name for you, by the way, what healers do. Because when I got there, que magia, it was, you had a ceremony for like the new moon, but it was, or the full moon, but it was like the first time I was seen as a mom by like someone who wasn't medicalizing my story.
Mm.
It was the first time that Egypt was honored.
Gonna make me cry too.
And I'm not sure what I have done in this world to deserve that privilege because I know so many people go through such shitty pregnancies and have really terrible parenting experiences. But the community that I was surrounded by in 2016 looked for me. And that is also in container. And you all were like just surrounding me. I mean, it could have been anybody else, but it was like maybe, I don't know, it was just Egypt that one time and just me that one time. But you were just honoring all the moms. And I was the only mom there. And like, just, I won't describe the ceremony because to me it's very sacred.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that all of these women and non-men from the community came together to bear witness, to see me, to see my child, I will never forget that. You have created, I feel like I tend to block joy because I don't deserve it. And when you was when we were talking about circle processes, you were like, I was like talking about one of the grief circle processes we've done for a mom. And you were like, and also your full moon circle process. And I was like, like, you know? And so I just wanted to say that the work you do, I know everybody could blow up smoke up your ass, but the work that you do is so important. I feel you being a container was a safety net for me to experience and expand upon what my journey and what my child's journey is going to be. I have told people before, Egypt now walks out the door and kisses Alegua goodbye. And she says, bye,
Mm-hmm.
warriors. You understand what I'm saying to you? This is a child that I'm raising in the ways in which I wish someone would have unpacked for me a long time ago. And it was because of you and the Black and brown women in that room that just made me feel like I felt like a warrior. You understand what I'm saying to you? But it felt like a sacred right. And I will never forgive you for igniting that in me. And I appreciate you forever for it. And I just had to say that.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, thank you for the privilege. I haven't had circled in a couple of months, just COVID and, you know, um, but full moon ceremony for the last, and I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now, is a place where, yeah, women and non-men and gender non-conforming, non-binary
Come
folks,
on, healer, intersectional healer.
yeah, yeah, we all need that space, and I think this is part, and I don't think this is part of the reclamation work. We circled, we we connected to the moon, and um, and we celebrated rites of passage, you know, and you gave us the gift of coming with Egypt as a first time mama with that precious baby who happened to be a girl child. And I was gifted with a song to be sung to.
Yeah, the song.
Yeah. So it is to be sung uh, for a mother or parent when they have their child, uh, and it's sung to a girl when she's born, when they have their first moon, and when they become a mother. So thank you for the privilege, um, because when we do these things in community, it's not just for you, but that song, you know, time traveled to, you know, the mothers who didn't get that, who didn't have their motherhood celebrated, for the little girls, um, who wanted to experience that community love. So like each time that we gather in this way, it's for the people there, but we're time traveling, right? To like all of the suffering, you know, that we've inherited. So like the prayer is always, you know, may this medicine that we're co-creating travel to the original wound of our lineage,
Mm.
you know, so that it can interrupt that thing that we don't want to be part of our legacy, right? So, you know, and it's like the opportunity to like dream together and to turn up together and to, you know,
There was a lot of drumming. There was a lot of there might have been some twerking too. I mean,
sacred turn up all day. You know what I'm
yes,
saying? There's room for all the things. It's like
yes.
ancestors, yes, whatever, but yes, let's work.
I like how you said that it was sort of like time trap. Excuse me, I'm still choked up. I like how you said that it was sort of like time traveling. My other esteemed colleague, Dr. Shamel Bell, says that it's quantum activism, you know, like quantum physics and quantum activism. Yes, come on,
Yes.
boo. And I think about just the ways in which we say that we're imagining a world in which we want to live, and honoring Black women and honoring brown women and honoring motherhood and honoring uh, the necessity to terminate pregnancies, which is what Abelina thanked you for. She said, we don't talk enough about how valid your feelings around grief are, even if you choose to terminate a pregnancy.
Yes.
So she
Yes.
said,
Yes.
thank you
Yes.
for holding space for
Mm,
that,
Ashe,
because
thank you.
there's a lot of shame around it. I've gotten over my shame. I was 17. It's too young. It's too young. And so, and I think about now, what would I be doing with two children? Oh my goodness, I hate it already. So there's that. But um, I know that you have used your circle processes as a form of activism. And again, you like shirk the word activism, you know, but I look at you as someone that the community calls on when we need mediation, when there's been harm, when there's trauma, when there's sadness. You know, another thing, I feel like you just gonna be in my life forever. Another thing that you were very present for was last year when we lost Kahari, and when he took his life. And I think about just like I don't know what your own container is, Lou, you know, because you just show up and you say, what does the community need? And you do this thing where you're like, community, yeah. And what do you need as an individual? Because the larger community can be separated and fragmented. And also, how do you center yourself and ground yourself? And that's a fucking gift, Lou. And I hope you know, like, you are fulfilling whatever you were put on this earth for, and I appreciate you.
Mm, thank you.
Thank you. My best friend got me some tissues because you know I'm out here losing my shit and my mascara. Okay. Okay. So I want to shift gears for a second if I can, because you know I know that me and you have the tendency to be goofy.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
So I want to ask you, what things are you experimenting with right now? What brings you joy? Like, what's on the Lou gravy train for making things happen for you? I know you into plants and shit, but like, what brings you joy? Like, how do you delve into your pleasure?
Making medicine, dancing, um, like yeah, just like really luxuriating in things. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So getting like taking the time to put on freaking red lipstick because it brings me joy.
Your
moisturize.
lipstick looks amazing, first of all. I feel like you
Thanks,
moisturize
thanks,
before.
thanks.
Yes, come on, Vogue bitch. So I feel like you moisturize. I feel like you got in the crevices. You was not ashy and you was minding your motherfucking business. So thank you.
Look. In the middle of all of the things, I feel like the land is always the refuge. Um, so like, yeah, being in communication and relationship with the land, and it gets so exciting to be that it's warm enough to get my hands in the soil. And yeah, and dance and music and writing and books. Oh my God, books.
I was gonna ask you about books. What are you reading currently?
You know, so I read too many damn things at the same time.
Yeah.
So I am trying to, I'm like forever.
Yeah. That's me. You see those books that are out of place right here behind me? It's
No,
because I'm like, oh, let me go show them to somebody real quick. Yeah.
this is the stack next to me.
Mm.
Okay.
Come on, the body is not apology.
Hello.
Sonia Renee Taylor is coming to the show next week. So
Yes, I'm gonna be up in here. So yeah, books give me pleasure. I am reclaiming rest. I am reclaiming rest. Early in, during like the shutdown, I was sick. So it was funny because, it's,
I called you. I thought you had the Rona. Remember, I was like this.
I didn't know. Maybe, maybe not. It was during the time that like no one was getting tested.
Right.
But I was a wrap for like 3 weeks. And it just, I mean, going from like one room to the other and going up the stairs, I'm like, I'm tired. Need a nap. So again, like I took that as a hint, like, you need to create your boundaries and rest.
Right.
And not wait till I'm falling apart.
Mm.
But like rest as like a source of pleasure, as a I feel like it, so I'm gonna do it.
Come on, I said what I said.
Yeah. And be non-apologetic about it, because in order for me to do this work and be in integrity and be able to be of service in the way that I want to, like, I need to be okay. I need to be full. I need to, like, we all deserve that of each other. Right. So, and I need to, like, how am I being in integrity? Am I embodying what I'm talking about? And not from a place of like, need to be a good girl and right? Like, not like that. But La Morad, the other day, spoke about like aspiring goodness. And I really appreciate that, because, when we're aspirational, towards something, there's room for the full spectrum of our humanity, for the ratchet, for the goofy, for the silly, for the quiet, for the
I'm
shy.
glad you said it, because people be acting like they do not have space for the ratchet. And I'm like, what does that mean for us?
Mm-mm. Yeah, anybody who's like too on over, like at each polarity, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could do this.
Oh, because it's limiting.
Yeah.
It's so limiting.
And again, I think because I have the privilege of being with people in really vulnerable moments, it's important that like I be real with myself, and nourish and nurture myself in the ways that I need to, so I could show up and do what I could do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And it's not my question, I promise you. Because I'd be like, you know how I know it's not my question? Because I'd be like, can I say that? I be asking niggas, can I say that? Like, you know, say like, so if someone wants to embark on a healing journey, and this is kind of like the parallel along when people are like You can't love somebody unless you love yourself, or you need to be a whole person. And like, no one wants a broken person. And I'm like, sometimes people need to be loved in their brokenness. People need to be met where they're at, you know, that like we're disposing of people by telling them your trauma has you unlovable. You got to
Mm,
fix it. Like, you know,
mm.
um, so that's one thing. The second thing is if someone were to come to you and be like, Lou, I want to be a healer. I feel like I have a calling on my life. And you and I have talked about this. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
not talking to nobody about nothing until it's been 10 years because I don't want no one trying to come for me so that I could be like, well, let me tell you something. And I had a reading the other day and I got read for filth.
That's
And
what
she
readings
was
be
like,
doing.
you supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. You're not doing it. I'm being told. And I was just shocked that all my business was out in these ethereal streets. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and but she's right. I have all of these tools and I'm just so afraid of being that open. I'm super vulnerable, but am I honest with myself? That's the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I like how you said that you're with people in their vulnerability, but you have to do a self check and a self reflection. And so, can someone be loved while being in transition of all the things that they found about themselves or were taught about themselves to be
Mhm.
unlovable? And can someone be a healer? I wrote a poem yesterday about somebody I really am infatuated by. And I said, there's nothing more dangerous than a healer in need of healing. And I was talking about myself. But like, is there like, you know, I hear about the struggle witches and things like that. Like, do we need to be a certain caliber, or is that paying into respectability politics?
It depends.
Okay. Okay, mamas.
There's like a whole spectrum to it. Again, when we have, again, can it's not about, no one has all their shit together. No one. No one, right? Um,
Why do you think some people appear like it and never speak about it?
for
Is
a
it
bunch,
taboo to say I don't have my shit together?
um, yeah, for some folks.
Mm,
I mean, I feel like, I mean, there again, it's like a lot of pressure to perform, which is
yeah.
why when we're like, I got my healer cape on, I got like my whole,
What? Not the healer cape. Okay.
hold on, you know what I'm saying? I got like,
Come on, courts.
come on, come on, sir. You know what I'm saying? I have all of the crystals and all of the thing. And that is like so much freaking pressure. That is so much
Yeah.
pressure.
Dale, dale.
Again, because it is not okay. So there's like a bunch of things that we're tangling up here. So we as practitioners have a certain responsibility if we are to be of service to others, to at least in the moment that we're meeting them. Like you, as if you're not in right relationship with yourself or you're not in right relationship with spirit, and you're out there causing harm, that is
Mhm.
dangerous. Right. So I think that there's a difference between like, I am feeling called to be of service in this way. And yes, be a student. Yes, do the work. Yes, 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 yes.
Right.
When spirit is whispering to you to like go in a particular direction or like opens up the el camino, the pathways, right? Where so the conditions and the people, right, for your to support your like your learning and your development.
Right.
Yes. This whole title of healer, it's like I think people need to unpack for themselves. Like
I'm so glad we on this trajectory. I'll wait.
because because again, the moment, it's like we could carry this medicine and carry these gifts, but because of integrity and because of the importance of the gift that you have of someone's life,
Right.
like you got to come correct. And the thing is, like, when you're devoted to that, it changes you. We want to be the best of ourselves, and it's ongoing work. You know, a lot of us who are good at what we do have painful stories, right? That life initiated us in particular ways early on.
Right.
That we were, you know, so like it gives us insight. It gives us like an X-ray vision where you're like, ah, right? I smell that pattern because I have it. So I,
I
right?
wish more healers would say that. I smell that pattern because I have it.
But the difference is knowing how to use your story. So whether you are
Okay.
a therapist, whether you are a practitioner of any kind, a teacher, when we're sharing our own stories, the why needs to be for the learning.
Right.
Because there are folks that make it all about them and you don't make space for it's like so always it's like for whose benefit am I telling this story? Is it to hear
When
my
you be asking these questions, baby, I don't know. I'm like, hold on one second. Whose benefit am I telling this story? I wonder about that because, I hear a lot. I hear so much. I mean, I hear so much about everything. I stopped taking things personally yesterday. I really did because I was like, it's not just me, it's everybody. Everybody who has a platform to say just what it is that they have to say, whether they're a healer. I like how you said if they're a teacher. I think about teachers that are getting dragged all the time because they say something that's revolutionary and then it's like, how dare you? I think about healers that people snooty and I'm going to be very honest with you. I can't believe I'm about to say this. But I feel like that I pride myself on just being authentic on the show. When I was growing up, my mom had a stint in the Pentecostal church, right? And there used to be a Bible verse, and I don't want to quote it, but there's a couple of things you're not supposed to ever discuss or never question. You're not supposed to question God, the gift, or the glory. And so I'll never forget that because I feel like it's ingrained into my brain that you're never supposed to ask God a question. You're never supposed to ask people who've been given the ordainedness. I don't even know if that's a word, by God. So you're not supposed to ask a preacher, what are they doing with the money? Or, and you're never supposed to question someone's accolades. And I find that I don't know what life would have been like before www. But I noticed now that there's a lot more information and a lot more stories get like plastered on the internet and they stay there and they don't go away. And so if you have someone that you think is amazing and you come across them and you connect, and then you get inboxes or whatever, I think about what is the community, and this may not be a question, but it's just a thought. There is a community fragmentation that happens when it's like that person says they're this, but there was this one time that they did that, and so therefore equals they cannot be this. And and I'm like, wow, why do we hold each other to such a high standard? And I think about Daughters of the Dust. I'm fucked up over that movie. I cannot process. I'm gonna watch it 4 more times. I cannot process just things that happen. And I think about Eula. I went to bed thinking about Eula last night because I hear it. I hear it about the healers. I hear it about myself. I hear it about people that have been on my show. Don't have them on your show. Be careful, be wary. And I'm like, okay, then everybody has a story. Why are we so invested if we're all healing and if we're all on our individual collective path to healing? Why are we so invested in documenting someone's past unhealing?
Mm.
Is this the story we need to tell ourselves? You ask me questions all the time and I'll be trying to answer them in my journal. Sometimes I answer them on the internet and no one knows. But like, what do we need to do differently? I'm all for call out culture if it's going to stop the harm, but I'm not for call out culture if it's going to end someone's life. I'm not for call out culture if it excludes that person forever from community. I want us to actually imagine a world post-COVID, post-oppression, post, and I'm not sure how we get there. And I think I've been having sort of like this question of a lot of people because I'm trying to spread the container a little bit further so everyone can get their answers in. So we could be like, these ways. If we piece this together and we piece that together and we thread and we thread and thread, a tapestry might appear. I know that was a lot. I talk a lot.
I'm like, where do I, I'm like, what corner do I grab that from?
Do whatever feels comfortable.
I mean, one of the things that I thought about was like, we're all our own healers.
Mm.
We are, our bodies are these beautiful divine creations that sometimes when things are out of balance, this is when we bring in, either the Western doctor or the plant medicine or the energy healer to remove the obstacle or to offer the support so the body can do what it knows how to do. So I think that that's like one of the things in terms of, we shouldn't be putting anybody on a pedestal.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Because we're all human with the full spectrum of our human conditions, with the power and the medicine to heal and destroy. So, which is why I speak to our, and like it's in the bio, our individual and collective liberation. It is a parallel process. It is a parallel process because it's in the interrupting of the wounds and the suffering of our lineage, be it belief systems, behaviors, addictions, trauma, like all of these things need to happen individually while we're doing this collective work. And it needs to be real and it needs to be intimate. And it needs to be patient. It is an ongoing reciprocal relationship that doesn't have like an end. It doesn't have which is why someone who might, like we love the beautiful stories of redemption.
Yes, we
in
do.
all of the ways, right? But there needs to be space for all of it. And no one person is gonna fix it. And no, and it needs to happen in community, but then there's like the part that we have to take agency over our own lives and take responsibility over our own choices. But even that individual process doesn't have to happen alone and shouldn't happen alone because we're not meant to do any of this alone.
I wonder how, like, I know that I had to log out of my Facebook. Sorry, it's being me. People are tagging and sharing the video, so I'm very happy about that. I'm trying to share to my page and all this other stuff because I'm the show producer too. What I have is this desire to be free. And I think that we all have it. And I feel like we allow our blockages to block us. And I want to know, like, what, I talked to you before about a lot of people know how to go up the steps. We know that's if we want to go up, we can either take the elevator for accessibility or the steps. But sometimes people forget the direction of how to move forward, whether it's pushing or whether it's the left, right, left, or whether it's the acknowledgement in our brain that I have to move. And so I wanted to know, like, how can someone begin unpack, like, say they just coming to this conversation and they're like, I don't know what the hell is going on. This lady's talking about healing and community and pedestals and containers. There's a lot of it's a lot of knowledge, right? What could be some tangible ways? I love the word tangible. It makes me feel sexy and whole as a person. Like what are some tangible ways that, that we can begin examining oneself, plugging into our joy, engaging in self-care, and moving forward with each other in love and accountability, because sometimes that doesn't go separately, right? You're so beautiful. I hate it here. You're
Thank
so
you.
fucking beautiful. I
Shut
just
up.
can't.
Stop it.
I
Stop it.
can't.
Getting quiet. Getting quiet and that is the first step is listening. So it's like before you even start talking about propelling forward and all of these things that you mentioned, what burdens are you carrying?
Mm.
What needs to be unloaded and what needs to and what has to go with you to the next part? Sometimes we're so quick to like propel and to move that we're not still enough to like listen to all of the ways that our bodies, that our dreams, that our pain has been trying to get our attention. So I feel like that is where it begins. Where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? And what is that pain trying to tell you? And
I'm
to
gonna write that down. Where does it hurt? You want her to say it again? Once more for the Ada's asking if you could say it for the people in the back, and she's in the back kitchen, so that's really happening in real time.
Yeah, like where does it hurt and what is the pain trying to tell you? And this question is for our physical pain, for our emotional pain, for those moments that we're like in the dark night of the soul. Getting still enough and be patient enough and compassionate enough with yourself to notice what part of you is longing for your attention.
Sometimes I want to make that a pinned comment. Just a sidebar real quick, because I'm the queen of the sidebars. Sister Priscilla Flint Banks said, I need to reach out to you and it's so good seeing you. I said, Sister Priscilla, I let her know. I miss my Boston peoples.
You so much love. Yes.
I think about the assignments that you give to me. I go back to that, and I
The
want to
years
go
of homework.
the years of homework. I know you for quite some time. This is so bad. I leave shit at your house and you take pictures and you send it to me. You're like, don't forget your list, bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and it's so bad. I'm
You're welcome.
always like, I need you. You have been there for me through some very, very traumatic things I did not know. I didn't know that I was experiencing grief around a certain person and subject. And Monica called you and she was like, you need to get to Dee Dee. And I was like, I don't want anybody in my house. I hate everybody. And I like wasn't answering the door. I said, I'm not suicidal. I just want to be left alone. And I was so angry. I wasn't even crying. I was so angry. I was just so mad that I had been violated so badly. And you came into my house. You made the 3.5 flights of steps. And you sat on my bed and you asked me, where does it hurt? I think you let me cry in your lap for like an hour. It must have been an hour. It just felt like time stood still and you allowed me to grieve. I really don't think that people know how closely death is to grief, because we are taught, okay, it's a sad thing, but it's not something to grieve over. You're supposed to go through the repast and have fun and celebrate life. And people try to push that, which is fine. I'm all for it. This is how the person wouldn't have wanted us to be. But the being still happens even when you lose a person, whether it's an emotional sense or a physical sense. And so, is that why you got involved with the current project you're working on now, with the coffins? Can you explain to us? Because I don't want to overspeak because I think it's such an important thing. And you made me see how I look at death uncomfortably, and I am surrounded by death. I'm surrounded by at least 6 friends that have taken their life. And a friend of mine is experiencing a loss just today, in
Mm.
which they found out, the person's body, floated in the water, and they've been looking for this person for a month. And so, is there space the same way that there is a birth and bereavement and death midwifery, right? Doula slash midwifery. Is there space for healers to be like, and this is how we can proceed and sit with death and honor it and
Mhm.
acknowledge it?
I mean, we just needs time and space. It needs the remembering that it's not linear. We live in a society that when you're privileged enough to have a job with benefits, if you experience a death in the particular category of the 5 people, you can get 3 to 5 days bereavement. If they do not meet that category, you will not get paid for those days off. But you have to come back in 3 to 5 days and perform, right? And I think that we've been so disconnected from from grief and from dying because we're expected to perform and produce through our pain. And one of the things that's important and why I'm doing this work. I mean, yeah, let us take our time and let us, before I start yapping away about that, like I want to pause and hold space for the grief that's coming up for you. I mean, like that's the thing. We're so quick to, okay, well, like what's on the agenda? That we don't pause to acknowledge the life loss, the grief experience, like that these other things that are expected from you and the numbness, like that is not normal. Grief is nonlinear, and and it's important that we make space to feel it and to be held in it. I was gonna say drink some water, but wine.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for just holding the space. I don't want to go into it, but it's just a
Mhm.
lot. One of my
Of
friends
course.
is sitting here next to me on the mantle.
Yeah.
It's very, I was talking to a friend about, he had asked me, why is it so much? And I was shocked because he always is the quote unquote strong one. And I lean on him because I'm also the strong one. So we just have the strong one relationship. And when he told me he lost his friend, it was like after I had told him like 20 minutes worth of shit. Like, I mean, I said, why didn't you start with that? Why didn't you lead with that? And he was like, I wanted to hear something other than the news I just heard.
Mm.
And I think that solidifies for me the relationship that most of us, I say most because there are people like you and others who are doing this work, but there's a relationship that we have with death that we don't want it to happen. We don't want it to happen to us. Even when we do want it to happen to us, we don't. And there was a speech that I gave at the Black Women and Marginalized Gender Conference last year, and I was talking about reasons to trigger warning about suicide. I was talking about reasons to delay suicide, and most of the women that I asked in the audience, what was their reason? I didn't have to explain what I was talking about. I asked, what is your reason if it feels overwhelming and if it feels like you don't want to get up tomorrow and she, they broke your heart for the last time? What is the reason? You haven't done it. You haven't taken your life yet. And a room full of Black women told me, because I have kids and who would take care of my children. That's the only reason why those Black women are alive today, because they needed to know that, and they knew that no one would do the labor of love for their children that they would. And so I feel like a lot of us have this very, very, very sordid relationship with death. And, and Lisa Good and I talked about this in the very, very beginning of the series, that there's no container for it. The funeral is it. That's it. And like you said, you get the 3 days if you're lucky. If it's someone like Kahari, I had to take vacation day, like to celebrate, you know what I'm saying? And there was no respite. There was no somebody can hold space for this. And then life is still going on around you and people are still upset about the things that they were upset about. There's no time. There's no time in between the deaths to hold the space and to process.
Yeah.
Thank you for seeing me. And I think that even what came out of that was just super important, that I think a lot of people may need to hear that your feelings in grief are valid. I'm not a grief counselor. I just been through a lot of fucking grief.
Yeah.
Your experience in grief is valid. And I'm never going to tell people, Kahari was my best friend and Egypt's godfather. And I'm never going to tell anybody, do you take all the time that you need? When Lovely took her life, it was, my job said that they were very understanding, but they weren't. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a formality to say it. Like, it's just a nice thing to say. They weren't really understanding because I was fucked up over it. And I had even flown to Buffalo. Like, and so.
And grief doesn't have an expiration date. It changes shape, it changes form, it changes how much space it takes up in your time, but it doesn't have an expiration date. But because, being Black and brown in this country, in addition to the personal losses that we have, we're also experiencing the systemic racism, and the way that expresses itself in the medical and police state. So it's sometimes so much that in order to survive, we need to keep it moving, because if we let ourselves feel all of the feelings, right, we feel like we can't take it.
I worry about that. Not for myself, because I do that weird thing where I compartmentalize, so I forget about the feelings until some traumatic shit happens. And then it's like, boom, bitch, we were still here. You locked us in the box. You forgot? And I think I worry about my friends, because my friends feel so much, like I had to tell a friend today, like, these bodies don't belong to you. If you look in the mirror, it's your own reflection. Like, you have to live with yourself. This is not your grief, the reasons why they're gone, whether it's from COVID, whether it's from any other illness, whether it's from choosing to surpass their reason to delay suicide, and I just need to know that there are people like you that are like, come corazon, let's talk about it.
But the thing is, like, we can be that for each other. We just need to.
How?
But we're having this conversation right now, and it's about having more of these kind of conversations. It's about there's like, and and it's multi-layered, and it's not like, here's a checklist of the top 10 things that you can do to deal with,
Right.
right? No, it's not that. It's relational, it's individual, it's intimate. It's also at a community level an affirmation of like, this is not normal. And your symptoms, your inability to sleep, and your anxiety is a normal response to some really fucked up things.
Right.
So I think the first thing is like acknowledging and not try to shut down and not try to minimize, but also like finding that balance of connecting, of getting help, of getting support. And if it's not like an immediate community, then talking people who are skilled in supporting you through that. Um, because again, I'm not supposed to figure this out alone. And which is like one of the things that, with all of the COVID deaths and like the non-COVID deaths, which is how this particular project was born or what inspired it.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? I think it's amazing. I thought it was one thing, and we're gonna get into that, but this project is so important.
Thank you. So it's called Spirit of the Earth, Carry Me Home. And
Which
it's
has got to be like your favorite song. I swear to God, every time you sing it, I start crying.
that's a jam. Big, big ups to Letta Neely, who taught me the song a bunch of years ago. And, lifting up, love you, Letta. Amazing, amazing artist and poet, and yeah, amazing spirit, and bless them. And so yeah, so many folks who are dying alone in hospitals, in nursing homes, where we're not able to carry out our death rituals and practices, where like the thing that we want to do the most is unavailable to us. And I thought about what impact is that going to have on these generations of people? How is grief going to be installed in these bodies
Mm.
when we can't do the things that we do to give us comfort? So a couple of years ago, I did this project with the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. This coffin, this cardboard coffin, where I was able to kind of like make it beautiful and cover it with peacock feathers and cowrie shells and lift up, so like the prayer when I made it was like the people whose lives, whose deaths are invisibilized and the types of are invisibilized, right? The ones that no one wants to talk about. But what would it look like now in these times that we can't have our regular death rituals?
Right.
So, and we've lost our jobs. I know of families who have lost more than one person, to COVID. And in addition to the grief, the financial implications, I mean, I know we've all contributed to someone's,
GoFundMe,
GoFundMe
PayPal
for,
pool.
and, and just like in addition to the loss, to this like significant loss, to have to think about fundraising $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Because the other part is like, how do we, like one of the ways that we show love, and again, it's like, this is not shade, right? But this is like, oftentimes we show love with how expensive, how much money we spend. It's like a way that we're saying we love you and we honor you and we value you and your life and your impact and all of these things. So we want to get like the best, most expensive thing. So what happens when the death of the person that we love the most in this world happens and we don't have a job? And all of our community is losing their jobs. And we can't even be together anyway. We, maybe 2 or 3 people can go to a funeral home, so we have like all of these limitations in addition to our grief. So we're grieving multiple things at the same time. So I thought, wouldn't it be like I thought it would be really beautiful for there to be an opportunity to alleviate that burden, to do it in a way that causes less harm to the environment, to do it in a way that we can put our hands and our love and personalize it, and for how can we bring us together when we can't physically be together. So with this project, so there would be like the cardboard coffin, which could be used for cremation or for burial. A community artist would be compensated if the family chooses, to like, just put their medicine all over it and make beauty, in communication with the family, or the family themselves, can kind of decorate the coffin, and they could, they could line it with like the person's blankets and sweaters or whatever beautiful thing. They could fill it with love notes from family and from community. I mean, I'm imagining like, I've supported home funerals before, where we've been able to cover a person in flowers from the garden, and what would it look like where we can feel, like, how it is, like it's like you spend all of these like hundreds of dollars on these flower arrangements and the crowns and all of that.
Right.
And we can't do that right now. But imagine if like the $15-20 bouquet from the supermarket with like the, beautiful flowers, because that's what you can afford, you bring that to the basket,
Right.
or a box on that family's porch, and they're able to kind of offer that, and so we can do something different, and we can make beautiful without having to go into debt, and
Like
still.
these rituals and ceremonies like look different now because of the limitations, but we can still expand upon what it is we're trying to, who it is we're trying to honor, and what part of their legacy that remains with. I love the idea about putting their personal belongings inside of the coffin, because it reminds me of like the Egyptians and how they would just like, the saying, you can't take it with you. The Egyptians is like, yes, the fuck you can. And we're gonna line the coffin. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Mhm.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, like, one thing that I know is that we're good at making beauty out of limitation. Like, that is ingrained in our DNA. And but the thing is that this could be another way, post COVID, to reclaim these practices, because once upon a time, I mean, the current way is not that old when you think about humanity, right? So this could be like another way of bringing our beloveds home, and it's not for everyone, but it's another way that's possible. So this would be for low income folks, although I was like, yo, I think we like all low income right now. And for
I was like,
undocumented.
who can I scam on today?
Yeah. Yeah. So
And you were saying for undocumented folks as well?
yeah. I mean, like, really centering, this is a prayer. This is like a directive from spirit, and this is an experiment that we're going to be doing together, right? So there is a website. So we're collecting resources.
I'm gonna post a link to the website. If I have it, it's handsagayareiki.com
I just,
backslash. I got you. I'm gonna put it in the comments.
and and also have connected with some, with artists, that'll be working with the project, and I'm just really excited to be of service, and to relieve the burden, for folks who are grieving, and for them to feel held and loved, and in this time of need. So
That was the word. That was the work. So many people. I can't wait till you read the comments. It's actually titillating. How many people you just touched today?
Mm.
And a question that I ask all of my guests before I let them go. You know, I got chuletas in the oven. They've been baking this whole time. I don't know
Let
who
them
I
get
am.
dry.
Look,
I'm
I
like,
don't know who
don't
I
let
am
them
now.
get dry.
I don't know who I am now. Um, but a question that I ask all of my guests is a two-pronged question because those are my favorite kinds of questions, Lou. And the first part of it is there something you were surprised I didn't ask you? Or is there something that you were like, oh shit, I hope I get to talk about this and I didn't get to talk about this? And two, who would you like to see on the show?
I can't. There's nothing that I'm surprised. I don't know, because I feel like we're just flowing in conversation. I like
Yeah.
doesn't feel interviewee.
I try not to
So thank
interview
so
people.
thank you. So like thank you, because I feel at ease and I'm just able to be like blah, blah, and like whatever falls out of my mouth. Um and no, I think I talked about everything that I want to talk about. Yo,
Yes.
Toshi Reagan.
Who?
Toshi Reagan.
Toshi Reagan.
Yes, Parable of the Sower opera. Um, yeah, amazing artist and musician. Um, I'm a huge fan of Octavia Butler.
I
And
wouldn't have never guessed.
and yeah, they're musical. They last night they replayed it. And I think they might do it again this Friday. And I saw this show live a few years ago, and it is medicine. It is medicine. And this they were interviewed on podcasts of the End of the World with Adrienne Marie Brown and Autumn Brown. Look, you need to listen to that episode.
Can
So
you? Oh, let me write it down. Hold on one second. What is? Okay. So Toshi was on the Adrienne Murray Brown episode podcast,
yep,
the End of the World podcast.
yep. Yeah, which they recorded here in Boston. So when I think, this is like a prophet, a griot, you know, their work has been medicine, and I'm so happy that they exist. Um, La Marade.
You know what's funny? I'm gonna follow up on that
I'm like, who else is giving me medicine?
because we go way back, like babies and pacifiers. Llama Rod and I.
La Marade has been given some good medicine to the internets. Yeah. Oh, and Sister Girl Sadada Jackson. It's another person.
Sadada. I'm circling these so I don't forget. So Tashi Reagan,
Mm-hmm.
Lama Rod, and
Mm-hmm.
Sadada Jackson. I'm gonna inbox her right now because Sadada has always given me so much love. You know how sometimes Boston people can love on you just because you're from Boston? Sadada be like, and it's just because you are who you are. And I'd be like, but we don't know each other. She'd be like, I know you. And I, so Luana, this has been the most I always say that each episode is my favorite, but I don't know. Maybe I should stop saying it because it's just they're also like different in their own ways and this is just like a mind boggling like experience and like I come back and listen to them while I'm doing other stuff. Thank you so much. There's so many morsels here for people who are just joining because you were late. There's so many morsels here. There's so much good juju in this conversation and there's as you would say there's so much honey this is what you do it this is the medicine Dee and I'm like it's not the medicine and it is you have touched so many people and I'm honored that we were able to have this conversation
Thank you.
And you did amazing, sweetie. You're doing great, sweetie.
Thank you. I wanted us to, for folks that are still on, I feel like, where's my bell at? If we could just like hold, just like
Yes.
close out in prayer for those who are suffering,
Yes.
for
Wait,
those
who are we closing out in prayer for?
who are suffering, for those who have experienced loss, for those who have families in the hospital, for those who are holding fear, for the birthing ones right now who are in hospitals by themselves and aren't able to have all of the support they would normally have. So bless the ones who are birthing, and bless the ones who are coming through during these times, who chose these times to be born. May we make this world a hospitable one, a nourished one, a supportive one, an abundant one, to be worthy of all of the magic that you're going to bring with your arrival. Blessings to the elders, to all of those who are by themselves. Blessings to the parents who are homeschooling and home teaching. Blessings to the ones who don't know where their next meal is coming from. May you be perfectly supported. To those who are scared, to those who don't know. So like, my prayer is for all of those to be perfectly supported wherever you are, with whatever your prayer is, whatever your need is, may be perfectly met. Ashe.
Gosh, I'm so happy that I know you. And I appreciate you coming on the show and making this episode number 29 of the full set.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope that you have a wonderful night.
Thank you. I hope you love. I hope your chuletas are bomb.
Thank you. Te amo, querida.
Y yo a ti. Buenas noches. Kisses to Egypt.
También, mi amor. Nos vemos.
Bye. Igual, bye.